Hey, how's it going? And today I'm just doing something fun and exploring this Embergen program in relationship to LightWave, and I've already figured out in Embergen how to do image sequences, and so now I'm just exploring bringing a VDB volume basic cloud out of Embergen into LightWave. So I'm by no means an expert on VDB, and I'm still learning as I go. It's interesting, and I'm enjoying it, actually. I enjoy solving problems like this. If you're interested in learning more about VDB and creating explosions and light effects, there's this one channel here by Prometheus. And then of course there's always LightWave documentation too. Mostly my experience with VDB is, the main thing I think of is that it takes a lot of rendering power. And unfortunately, LightWave is a CPU-based renderer. You'd have to get Octane, and I have to play around with that using the GPU to render in LightWave versus just the CPU. But you can get some nice looking renders with Embergen in LightWave, and that's what we're going to do today. This is just for fun. So right now we're in Embergen. There's this explosion, of course, that's completely awesome. But what I'm going to do is I'm looking for something that looks more like a cloud. So I'm going to go into the open projects here. I'm going to go in the presets. And I've got to explore. There's so much to explore in here. It's just like a candy store, literally. There's so much in here. It's just kind of mind-boggling. But as I was looking in here, there's one. Where is it? Oh, it was this dry ice heavy smoke. So click this and we go open, okay? And then if you want to do, I already made a video on how to render out an image sequence. If you right click and you go to export, you can go VDB, and you just click from here and into simulation. And then down here, all we got to do is just hit play, and we'll let the simulation run. So I would just let it run until there's a cloud formation that appears that you like. So this is going to flatten out, and maybe right about, maybe a little bit more. Maybe right there, I like the way that looks, okay? So there is my cloud formation. And I'll just take note of the frame. I can reset it if I want to. So let me just play that again. Looking at it from a little different angle here. I could pull that one right there, but I like the part that flattens out. So that's what I'm trying to get. Like, let's just say right there. So let's say right around 240. The one thing I noticed on this is if you middle click, middle mouse button, you can scroll along the timeline there. All we got to do, you notice you can render out all these density, temperature, fuel, flames, velocity, compression. We don't even need flames. All we need is density. So our first frame is, I'm gonna say about 250. I'll take that. And we're just gonna render out one frame. So one. We just need to put it in a file somewhere. So I'll just put it here in the sequence folder, and I'll call this Cloud 3. I've already done this already. Save. And then just go export now. And of course it'll play the simulation, and then once it gets to that frame, it'll render it out. But I could pull out any particular cloud formation that appears on any frame, a couple of them. So there, it rendered out, and stop. And believe it or not, we're done. So now we're just gonna pop over into LightWave. Now there's some things that are kind of wonky, but I'll walk through those right now. To get going, all we gotta do is come to items. We're gonna go to null. We're gonna go okay. We're going to go into properties. Then we're just going to go to open VDB. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to load in that file that we just rendered out right there. Open. And we're at the density channel. That's fine. We're going to come down here, and there it is right there. And we're going to put that on the density channel as well. And you can read about these in the manual, but emission is essentially, you can think of it as an internally generated light. It's like luminosity. And then the scattering channel, you can almost think of that as a reflection, or the light that scatters, bounces from hitting off the cloud. And these are complementary colors, so white actually creates black, and black creates white, and it's hard to get your mind around, but there's this. We've loaded in our VDB file. And how exciting is this? This can't get more exciting. You might be asking though, where the hell is it? And this was driving me crazy, okay? So here's what I found out. Let's just zoom out and see what we see. Oh, there it is. There's our render right there. But what I noticed is it doesn't come in at the right angle there. So all we got to do is turn the scroll wheel here and we'll go to rotation, and we'll just go 90 degrees and rotate it. And now it's in the proper rotation. But in my experience with VDB, it's extremely processing intensive, and this cloud is actually massive. And if you try to render this out, that's why I'm not showing you the cloud right now. There's so much data there that it'll take forever to render. So what we're going to do, the one thing I think you have to do is we're going to scale it down. So I'll go into scale over here. And I say scale it down, I mean scale it down. We're going to go to 0.1, tab, 0.1, tab, 0.1, and just scale it down to a manageable renderable size. And now we're there. I believe I can hit A on the keyboard and bring us in. Now this kind of gives you an idea of scale. So we're 1 meter here. So this is very workable. I see the camera. I'm in the wrong perspective. There we go. Okay. So to give you a sense of scale, what we can do is let me go bring in a little tiny figurine. And then it helps. I think it always helps to have a figurine or something. We'll bring in a peasant girl. Why not? So we'll bring in a peasant girl. And then we just render her in. I hope it didn't bring in 2. Don't tell me I hit it twice. Okay. Did I bring in 2 or 1? Just 1. Okay, great. Okay, so that's your frame of reference right there, that girl. We might as well give her a ground plane to stand on, just so a little bit more frame of reference. That's 10 meters. Hit A again. I think it's a good, just to give you a frame of reference. So I recommend just initially moving around not in VPR, so that you can just navigate real quickly. Otherwise, you'll see that the system really bogs down. So I'm just gonna, I don't want to be on the ground plane, but if I'm on the null, let me put this at the 0 frame first too. If I'm on the null object, I can come down a little bit more. Okay, so now I'm just going to reposition myself here and kind of punch in a little bit more. Okay, and I just have this for scale. So on here, there's a lot to all this. We can go in and try to texture this more, but I think you'll see that it looks kind of good as it is. The only 2 things worth noting here is that these VDBs are essentially made of voxels, and I guess you can think of voxels as a 3-dimensional pixel. So if you're seeing a box shape, then it's just like you've zoomed in so much on a digital image and you're seeing the pixels. So the option is to increase the resolution, which is create more pixels, or back away. So up here on the step size would be one way to increase, in a sense, your resolution by making the voxels smaller. And then down here on interpolation, I think we recommend that they go with quadratic. And other than that, I think we're ready to go. We just want to match our perspective here to the camera. Then we can switch to camera. If we want to move in, I'd say on the camera, just go to properties, and I would say at this point, just zoom in here a little bit more. And then we can go to VPR. And what we're going to do right here is we're going to go ahead and kill the backdrop and just let this kind of render out a little bit. But you can see as a smaller cloud formation, if I'm on the null object, let me close these windows here. If I'm on the null object, let me go, whoops, I want to go back to the null object here. And I can rotate around. It's a 3-dimensional thing, which is cool. So something like this, you could easily put into a scene, and you could try to scale it back up or whatever. When I zoom in on this, after I've rendered this out, if I were to go to render right now and hit render frame, it renders out pretty clean. Again, I think the problem is that because LightWave is a CPU renderer, it's just not able to process as quickly as a GPU processor. And so I think in that case, you're just going to have to bring in smaller items. Like, I can't imagine trying to process out if I hadn't scaled this down as a VDB sequence, which, by the way, you can do. This is actually kind of rendering kind of fast, so this might be taking about a minute to render out this small cloud. But if you can imagine 30 frames per second, and it's taking a minute, so 48 seconds, let's just say a minute, okay? So if I got in closer, it might have even taken longer. But let's say a minute for a frame, that's 30 minutes for 1 second of footage. So, it starts adding up, right? And if it's even bigger, then it's even more. So I'm not sure exactly how much you can do with LightWave with VDB right now, but you can do some stuff. You can bring in, like I'm showing you right here, these cloud formations, and that's kind of cool. Like, I don't know, it kind of looks like a hat or something. Honestly, I could have pulled a different formation from the sequence and gotten something that maybe looked a little bit more interesting. But then, if you go into perspective, you can always change the way you're looking at it, get it from a little bit different angle. And I think it has a lot of promise, to be honest with you. This is just for fun. This is just for exploration. I'm going to keep playing around with this, and if I come up with something else that's kind of cool, I'll be sure to share it. And of course, if you guys have any tutorials you'd like to share, please feel free to share them. So thanks so much. Take care and have a great day.